First, this is the most controversial issue on earth today. Hateful and inane comments will be ignored or deleted at my discretion. Second, many arguments about the Middle East delve into distant history. I may make a video about this history in the future, but this video will focus on the present situation. Today, 10 million Jews, Arabs, and others are living on a tiny sliver of land between the Mediterranean Sea and the Jordan River, a land slightly larger than New Jersey. In the past week, Palestinian Arabs have been executing mass arrests on each other and killing each other in bomb attacks reminiscent of what they've done for decades against Jews. You probably haven't heard about this because the world media only notices when Israel is doing the arresting or assassinating. Arabs killing Arabs does not fit the anti-Western narrative of the left, and so it is buried in the back pages. But here are some internet headlines. Hamas and Fatah crossed all red lines in Gaza and the West Bank. Palestinian Hamas detains leading Fatah officials in Gaza Strip. Hamas and Fatah battle for power. Fatah rounds up dozens of Hamas activists. West Bank arrest raid sparks threats of revenge. How do we make sense of these headlines? Well, I lied. We do have to go back in history, but only to 2007. Fatah, the party of the late and unlamented Yasser Arafat, is the largest political party in the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the PLO. Fatah is a fascist nationalist party, similar to Saddam Hussein's Ba'ath party in Iraq. It is orders of magnitude more religious than the most extremist evangelical Christian factions in the United States, but compared to theocratic Islamists such as Al-Qaeda, it is relatively secular. On the other side, Hamas is an explicitly Islamist party, advocating Sharia law. In 2007, Fatah's Mahmoud Abbas was president of the Palestinian Authority, but the religious Hamas party commanded massive grassroots support, especially in Gaza. In June 2007, Hamas launched a coup against Fatah rule in the Gaza Strip. It involved such civilized behavior as the targeting and killing of civilians, public executions of political opponents and captives, throwing prisoners off high-rise apartment buildings, fighting in hospitals, and shooting from a jeep marked with TV insignias. When all was said and done, 163 people were dead, including 41 non-combatants and 2 UN personnel, and over 550 were wounded. More than 50 journalists were arrested during this period. Remember, these are Arabs killing Arabs. Since June 2007, Hamas has consolidated its theocratic control of the Gaza Strip, banning such anti-Islamic institutions as bookstores and barber shops, and killing and intimidating the tiny Christian population. It also used its position to fire thousands of rockets into Israeli cities. Meanwhile, Abbas's relatively secular regime has clung on to control of the West Bank, but it is in a precarious situation and Hamas is gaining ground. During the same time period, thanks to the security fence and superior intelligence information, Israel has all but eradicated the phenomenon of suicide bombings within its borders. But the rabid Palestinian factions, incited to violence every day by their media and their leaders, needed another orgy of violence to satisfy their appetites, even if it was against their own people. Last Friday, a car bomb killed 5 Hamas men and a 6-year-old girl, who were picnicking on the beach in Gaza City. Hamas leaders were quick to order an unprecedented clampdown on Fatah, arresting more than 160 of its members and closing dozens of institutions run by Fatah supporters in Gaza. In response, Fatah arrested more than 200 Hamas operatives in the West Bank. The most amusing part of this barbaric display is the playground name-calling the sides are resorting to. Quote, "There is a group of traitors in Fatah who work for the Zionists and Americans," said a senior Hamas official. "These are the same figures who fled the Gaza Strip last year. They want to destroy Hamas at any cost." For the first time, Hamas this week began referring to Fatah's leaders as sons of pigs and monkeys, a label that has thus far been reserved for Jews. This is in addition to other terms such as Zionist agents, prostitutes, and mentally retarded. Fatah, for its part, has also pulled up some of the words it once used against Israel. Fatah spokesmen are now referring to Hamas as an occupation force in the Gaza Strip. Hamas leaders are being depicted as terrorists, oppressors, scum of the earth, and sex perverts. It should be clear by their recent actions that neither of these groups is interested in peace, not with Israel and not with each other. Peace is not even in their vocabulary. But to drive this point home, let me quote from the Fatah Constitution and the Hamas Charter. Of course, this would be the equivalent to our U.S. Constitution, in that it laid out the case for these organizations at their founding. These documents are the public face that Fatah and Hamas choose to present to the world. Fatah Constitution, Article 12. Complete liberation of Palestine and eradication of Zionist economic, political, military, and cultural existence. Fatah Constitution, Article 19. Armed struggle is a strategy and not a tactic, and the Palestinian Arab people's armed revolution is a decisive factor in the liberation fight and in uprooting the Zionist existence, and this struggle will not cease unless the Zionist state is demolished and Palestine is completely liberated. You see from this language that Fatah is based on Arab nationalism rather than religion. Meanwhile, Hamas bases its justification for genocide on the direct words of the Prophet. A portion of Hamas Charter, Article 7, which according to the Hamas Charter quotes the Prophet Mohammed. The day of judgment will not come about until Muslims fight the Jews, when the Jew will hide behind stones and trees. The stones and trees will say, O Muslims, O Abdullah, there is a Jew behind me, come and kill him. A portion of Hamas Charter, Article 15. The bond of one day for the sake of Allah is better than the world and whatever there is on it. The place of one's whip in paradise is far better than the world and whatever there is on it. A worshipper's going and coming in the service of Allah is better than the world and whatever there is on it. I swear by the holder of Muhammad's soul that I would like to invade and be killed for the sake of Allah, then invade and be killed, and then invade again and be killed. Hamas represents a brand of religious absolutism that would be militantly opposed in the US or Western Europe. But in the context of the Middle East, leftists try to pass Hamas off as a freedom-fighting organization standing up for its poor people. European envoys and former President Jimmy Carter have met with Hamas and granted them legitimacy on the world stage. Thankfully, the US government still officially condemns it as a terrorist organization. But even more disturbing is that Mahmoud Abbas's Fatah party is considered by the US and even by some parties in Israel as a, quote, moderate partner for peace. They are equally committed to genocide, they just have a different strategy, and their basis is Arab supremacy rather than Islamic doctrine. The bottom line is that these groups, and various factions of Muslims across the Middle East, continue to kill each other regardless of what Israel or the US does. They have been killing each other since the Prophet Mohammed unleashed his violent, expansionist religion on the world. They would continue killing each other's men, women, and children, even if Israel disappeared from the earth tomorrow. And yet these are the people we are supposed to make peace with. On Obama's recent disgraceful trip to the Middle East, he affirmed faith in the peace process and the two-state solution, with a state of Palestine and a state of Israel living side by side in peace. Yet whenever these people are given the slightest bit of land, they use it as a means to kill the infidels, and when expedient, kill each other. Therefore, the idea of a peace process with these irresponsible, violent, cold-blooded murderers is absurd. The idea is perverse. The idea is a non-starter.